Dear pupils, welcome. This is the Write Right series, and it is for English language. The focus is Form 4 and Form 5. So here we are going to look at the writing part of the new SPM format. I am your teacher, Madam Gan. For writing skills, we have learning standards from 4.1.1 to 4.2.4. Let's look at all the learning standards. 4.1.1 explain information from diagrams, charts, tables, graphs, or others. 4.1.2 explain causes and consequences of actions, events, or simple processes. And 4.1.3 explain the main points of an idea or argument. 4.1.4 express and respond to opinions and common feelings such as amusement, anger, and regret. And 4.1.5 organize, sequence, and develop ideas within a text of several paragraphs on familiar topics. And 4.2.1 punctuate written work on a range of text types with reasonable accuracy. And 4.2.2 spell written work on a range of text types with reasonable accuracy. 4.2.3 produce an extended plan or draft and modify this appropriately in response to feedback or independently. And the last one, 4.2.4 use formal and informal registers appropriate to the target audience in most familiar situations. Now let's look at writing. So writing is paper 2 and the code is 1119/2. Part 1 is writing email. So let's look at the sample question. Part 1, you must answer this question. Question 1, you receive an email from your new friend Amy, who has just moved to your hometown. Hi, the school holiday is finally here. Let's go for a picnic with our friends. Where shall we go and what can we do there? What should we bring? I'll be waiting for your reply. Bye. So there are 3 questions here. Where to go, what to bring, and what to do. Now, write an email to your friend in about 80 words. Write your answer below. So here, let's learn how to suggest, to express opinion, and also to advise. How about? We often use how about and what about plus noun phrase when we make suggestions about food or drink. So there are 3 types of sentences that you can write. First, how about or what about, and plus the verb ing, how about plus present simple, and how about plus noun phrase. Let's look at how about or what about plus verb, and then you must add ing. Let's look at the sentences. How about starting a book club? What about opening your present now? What about going to Indah Recreational Park? What about jungle trekking, hiking, or what about camping? And the second structure, how about plus present simple. How about I pick you up at 8 o'clock on my way to the airport? And the last structure, how about plus noun phrase. Yeah, how about some lunch? How about food and drinks? How about a compass? Why not and why don't? We can use why not to make a general suggestion. We often find it in advertising. We can use why don't to make a specific suggestion. So why not plus verb or why don't plus verb. These are the example sentences. Why not take a break in typing? Why not treat yourself to a meal at the Sedap restaurant? You look tired. Why don't you take some time out and rest? It's getting late in the evening now. Why don't we stop now and work on this tomorrow morning? Now, let's look at let's and let's not. We use let's or let us to make suggestions about something, doing something with someone. And then we use let's not to make negative suggestions. Let's plus verb or let's not plus verb. Example, let's call Michael and see if he knows how to fix it. Let's make curry tonight. Let's not argue about this. Let's not spend all day talking about my problem. Shall or should? Shall is used in a question to offer, to give suggestion, and also to seek advice. And then we use should mainly to give advice or make recommendations or talk about obligation. So shall I plus verb, and then for should, pronouns plus should or shouldn't and plus the verb. So the examples, shall I bring some food? Shall I invite our classmates too? Shall we meet to discuss the matter? And should, you should try to practice English. You shouldn't translate too much. Now let's look at could. We often use phrases with could to make suggestions. Some are neutral, some are strong. The negative form, couldn't, is stronger than the affirmative form. Could plus pronoun plus verb. Or pronouns plus could and plus verb. So let's look at the examples here. A. I only have 3 chairs. There will be 4 of us for dinner. B. Could you use the one in your bedroom? A. I need to finish this essay by tonight. B. Could you get up early in the morning to finish it? And then let's look at the second one with the pronouns. Sheila could recommend activities for the camping. Next, we are going to look at can't you. We can use can't you to make a strong suggestion. It can sound very direct when it is addressed to someone who is present. Example, let's look at the structure first. Can't plus pronoun plus verb. So the sample sentences, can't you finish your homework before going? And this is a conversation. A. I think our television is fine. I don't want your father to replace it really. And he'll want one of those white screens. Oh dear, can't he manage with the one we have? Ought to. We use ought to when talking about things which are desired or ideal. So the structure, we ought to plus verb, we ought to, you ought to plus verb, pronouns plus ought to and plus verb. Let's look at the sample sentences. We ought to read more. We ought to leave for the concert now. You ought to listen carefully. Lucy ought to go by herself. Next we have, I thought we might. I thought we could. We use phrases like I thought we might or I thought we could to make weak suggestions, especially when we don't want to sound too forceful. So the structure, I thought we might plus verb. I thought we could plus verb. Let's look at the sample sentence here. On Saturday, I thought we might go to town and see the farmer's market. And then, I thought we could have lunch in a nice little cafe by the river. Now we have the structure, you or we could always. We can use the phrase, you could always or we could always to make weak suggestions. So the structure, we could always plus the verb, you could always plus the verb. Let's look at the sample sentence. Oh no, we are out of olive oil. We could always use butter. I know it's not as healthy, but it'll taste good. Now let's look at there's always. We use the phrase there's always to make very weak suggestions. It is sometimes used when someone is trying to cheer someone up or trying to be funny. So the structure, there's always plus noun. So let's look at the conversation here. How did it go? We lost 4-0. That's it for this year. We are out of the championship now. Don't worry, there's always next year. Another example, I always liked Lady Gaga. I once dreamt that I married Justin Bieber. Oh no, that was a nightmare. There's always divorce. Next, we have the structure, maybe, we, should. So you can write maybe plus the pronoun we or you and other pronouns and plus should and plus the verb. Maybe we should do more research before deciding on the venue. Maybe you should read more about the topic. Maybe you should ask your parents. Next we have I recommend, or I suggest. So I recommend plus verb, and then remember you must add ing. Either use a verb ing or use that plus a verb without to, or use a noun. So let's look at sentences. I'd recommend going to the doctor. I'd recommend consulting the school counselors. I'd recommend discussing with your friends. Or you can write, I suggest visiting the Eiffel Tower. Or you can write, I suggest that you visit the Eiffel Tower. And the last example, I recommend the lasagna. Next we have the phrase or the structure, have you thought about? Have you thought about plus verb ing. So these are the examples. Have you thought about buying a new computer? Have you thought about choosing the park instead of the beach? Have you thought about bringing more food items? If I were you, I'd. If I were you is used when giving advice about what you would do in the same situation as the other person. You imagine yourself in their position or situation and what you would do or how you would react. So the structure, if I were you, I'd plus the verb. These are the sample sentences. If I were you, I'd watch more news on TV. If I were you, I'd reconsider my decision to attend the concert. If I were you, I'd apply for the post. If I were you, I would study more. If I were you, I would stop doing that. If I were you, I would go to the doctor. If I were you, I wouldn't play with those wires. Let's look at how you can express opinions. Here are useful expressions. They are words or phrases to express your opinion. So, number 1, in my opinion. Then you have in my eyes, to my mind, as far as I'm concerned, speaking personally, from my point of view, as for me, as to me, my view, or my opinion, or my belief, or my impression, or my conviction is that, I hold the view that, I would say that, it seems to me that, I'm of the opinion that, my impression is that, I have the feeling that. Here are more phrases or expressions. My own feeling on the subject is that, I have no doubt that, I'm sure that, I'm certain that, I think, consider, find, feel, believe, suppose or presume or assume that. I hold the opinion that, I form an opinion, or I adopt an opinion. I dare say that, I guess that, I bet that, I gather that, it goes without saying that. Here are more expressions. I think, I feel, I guess, in my view, in my eyes, from my perspective, from my viewpoint, personally I think. What I mean is, some people say that, it is generally accepted that, it goes without saying that, I'm of the opinion that. Next we have, I believe, I suppose, according to me, in my opinion, it seems to me that, from my point of view, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to point out that, generally it is thought that, well, it is considered that, my impression is that, I hold the view that. Next we are going to learn how to write to advise. So to advise or advise, remember that the difference between the verb and the noun form of this word. Advise, A-D-V-I-S-E, is a verb. So you can write sentence like, I advise you to buy a good dictionary. The pronunciation is advise. And then we have another spelling, A-D-V-I-C-E, it is a noun. Can you give me some advice? So the pronunciation is advice. Advice is an uncountable noun, so it is unaccountable. This means that we can't say an advice. Instead, we say some advice or a piece of advice. Example, let me give you some advice. She gave me a very useful piece of advice. That is to buy a good dictionary. Now let's learn how to write to agree or to disagree. So here are useful words or phrases to express your agreement. You can write, I agree with you, or I agree with him, or I agree with her. I share your view. I think so. I really think so. The author is right, or Ali is right, or Siti is right. He is quite right. She is absolutely right. Here are more words or phrases to express your agreement. He may be right. She may be right. I have no objection. I approve of it. I've come to the same conclusion. I hold the same opinion. We are of one mind. We are of the same mind on that question. I'm at one with him on that point. Now let's look at useful words or phrases to express your disagreement. I don't agree. I disagree. I don't think so. You are wrong. He is wrong. I think otherwise. I don't think that's quite right. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with him. I don't agree with what you say. I'm afraid that is not quite true. I take a different view. I don't share his view. I don't share her view. I don't share your view. This argument does not hold water. More words and phrases to express your disagreement. I see your point, but that's one way of looking at it. However, well, I see things rather differently. I'm not sure I go along with that view. I agree up to a point, but I wouldn't quite put it that way myself. I can't go along with that. I couldn't go along with that. You've got to be kidding. I find that very difficult to accept. Not necessarily. There is no way I could agree with that. No, I'm not sure about that because we don't seem to be in complete agreement. Here are more ways to express your disagreement. I see what you're getting at, but I completely disagree. I'm not sure about that. I don't really agree with that idea. You could say that, however, I still have my doubts. That's out of question. Well, I don't agree with you. I don't quite agree with you. We don't seem to agree here. That's not always true. I don't think so. I'm afraid I disagree. Dear pupils, now it is exercise time. Let's look at this question. So, you must answer this question. It is compulsory to answer the first part. You receive an email from your friend Rajesh, who is your classmate. Hi, the school sports club is organizing a basketball tournament next month. Prizes are free, food book vouchers and tickets to Sunway Water Park. Shall we take part? Who should join our team and when shall we start our training? Looking forward to your reply. Bye. Now, write an email to your friend in about 80 words. Write your answer below. So this is the space or the page where you have to write your answer, which is an email. So let's look at the example here. You have to write to example 007rajesh@gmail.com and then you have to write the subject basketball tournament. So let's look at the sample answer. Hi Rajesh, I'm very happy to know that our school sports club is organizing a basketball tournament next month. I will definitely join you to form a team. We could inform our friends in the basketball club and hold a meeting to discuss the team members and the training sessions. How about this Thursday at 3 p.m. in our class? I recommend Joseph and Ramli as both are school basketball players. Shall we start the training next week after the meeting? I suggest every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. at our school basketball court. Reply soon. Bye. Dear pupils, in the sample essay, we have used a few of the structures or the phrases that we learned earlier. So for example, we use we could, how about, I recommend, shall we, and I suggest. For example here, we could inform our friends in the basketball club and hold a meeting to discuss the team members and the training sessions. So you can use we could. And how about this Tuesday at 3 p.m. in our class? Then number 3, I'd recommend. So I recommend Joseph and Ramli as both are school basketball players. And then the next one, shall we? So shall we start the training next week after the meeting? And the last one is I suggest. So I suggest every Thursday from 3 to 5 p.m. at our school basketball court. Thank you for watching this video. So we have reached the end of our class for today. And then don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It is called Educator Omni Tube. So see you again in another lesson for English language. Signing off, I'm Madam Gan. Bye bye.